There's nothing better than a good superhero origin story, so here's my ranking of superhero origin story movies from worst to best. Hear me out, in last place, I have Man of Steel. I do not care for this movie at all. I think it is just a fundamental misunderstanding of the character. I don't like what Zack Snyder does with pretty much any aspect of this film. It looks pretty decent as all his films do, but that's about it. It is sad because I do think Henry Cavill as this character had incredible potential. I think he just needed a different director in control of his story, and we'd probably still be seeing Henry Cavill as Superman to this day. I also like Lois Lane being chosen to be Amy Adams. I thought that was also a good decision. I'm sorry, once you actually dive into the story of this movie, it just does not work for me on any level. At number 10, I have X-Men Origins Wolverine. I know what you're thinking, this movie is a complete disaster, and I do agree with you in the second half of the movie. I think it takes a one-way trip to Stupidville. We are just doing some of the dumbest plot twists and bringing characters. It's like, oh, they weren't really dead, and it's just so stupid for the entire last like hour of this movie. But I might be alone on this. I actually think the first hour is actually a really solid Wolverine movie, just like him off in the woods. Just it's a really cool idea. At least when things do start getting really bad in the second half of the movie, it's almost so dumb that I can just have fun with it and just kind of laugh at how bad some of the moments are, which is something I can't do with Man of Steel. That I just hate my entire time watching. Nine is a definite step up. We have Wonder Woman. I am not the biggest fan of Gal Gadot in any way, shape, or form, and I think in other movies that she performs as Wonder Woman, like the Justice League film and stuff, she's actually pretty terrible in, but in the Wonder Woman movie, I think she is very good. It's an interesting origin of this character. I also definitely think her and Chris Pine have some pretty solid chemistry and some really funny moments together in this movie, so while it's not the greatest film of all time, it is definitely a very solid origin story movie. 8 is The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. You know I'm not the biggest fan of these movies, especially the second one, but I do think the first one is a perfectly solid Spider-Man movie. I like the origin aspect that we get in it of him in the lab. I think that's a very cool scene. I actually really like the Lizard in this movie too, and I think he's actually the perfect villain to have like Peter first fight when he first becomes Spider-Man. It's just a good starter villain to get this universe started. Sadly, things went off the rails in the second movie though, but there's a lot of really good fight scenes between these two. And obviously, you know, I do think everything with him and Gwen Stacy are absolutely incredible in all these movies. At number 7, I have Captain America: The First Avenger, easily the weakest of the Captain America trilogy, but that's not really a knock on the movie because the trilogy is just so incredible, and this one's just a really good film overall. And it works because Chris Evans is just so perfect as his character and makes Captain America just such a likable guy from the very beginning. Even before he has the serum, you're on his side. You feel like, yes, this is the guy that deserves to get these powers. He's going to do the right things with it, and obviously he does because he is Captain America, but it's just such a great story seeing him go from this scrawny guy getting picked on but never giving up. And of course, the stuff between him and Peggy and Bucky is also great in this movie, and you get that amazing sacrifice at the end. It's just a really good origin story movie. At number 6, I have the first Deadpool movie. Rewatched this just a couple weeks ago preparing for Deadpool and Wolverine, and yeah, this thing is still an absolute blast of a movie. It's got fun action all throughout. It's just super funny, obviously, as most Deadpool movies are. I love how the movie kind of is simultaneously going through him on this bridge, going through this massive action sequence, and bouncing back and forth between that and his origin story of becoming Deadpool. I think it works really well, and it's a good balance of seeing him and Vanessa and everything that happens. Yeah, the actual plot itself is literally super simplistic. You're basically just watching him become Deadpool, and then it's like, oh no, my girlfriend got captured, I gotta go save her, and that's essentially all that happens in this movie, but the vibes are so incredible, I really don't care, honestly. At number 5, I have Ant-Man. I just absolutely adore this movie. I think it's super charming all around. It's an amazing origin story for Scott Lang, and seeing him get in the suit for the first time leads to so many funny moments. Him and his ex-cons, again, super funny. No pun intended. It's just a perfectly small scale, essentially heist movie that has very low stakes outside of the stakes for our characters involved, and that's what makes it such a good origin story in my opinion. Just seeing this guy who never in a million years thought he would ever become like a superhero or have this suit that would give him these powers, and now suddenly have them and make the decisions. He has to go save his daughter. It's just a great movie overall, and I have a ton of fun every time I rewatch this. At number 4, we're getting into the real upper echelon of just really great superhero movies overall. I'm going with Iron Man for my number 4 spot. Obviously, we all know how incredible this movie is, being an origin story for Tony Stark, but not just him. It was really an origin for the entire MCU, making this an absolute classic to go back to. Tony Stark obviously had an incredible arc through the entirety of the MCU, but in this movie, he also had some really solid development, going from just a very selfish asshole pretty much at the very beginning to a actual guy trying to make a difference, trying to right the wrongs of his company and what he's done. I mean, come on, he literally built the first Iron Man suit in a cave with nothing but scraps. It's so iconic, that moment, and just a great origin story overall. Before we get into the top 3, let me know in the comments what your favorite 3 superhero origin story movies are, and hit the like button if you haven't already. already. At number 3, I have Spider-Man, the original Sam Raimi one with Tobey Maguire. This is just an absolutely classic film, and the origin part of it is absolutely incredible as well. I just love every single moment after it gets his powers, crawling around for the first time, making the first makeshift suit and going and fighting for money. It's just so cool. Of course, this movie is also helped by the fact that Willem Dafoe just gives you one of the greatest superhero movie villain performances of all time. He is incredible in this entire movie. Should be right up there in conversations with the Joker. Honestly, he is so great. Really just the perfect balance between that comic book cheesiness, but also having some really good serious and endearing moments. Number 2 is Batman Begins. I mean, obviously when you have Christopher Nolan making your superhero origin story, you're going to be very high up on the list, and the more I watch this movie, the more I like it, honestly. I think it's just an absolute masterpiece across the board. This movie really spends a ton of time on all the different training and all the different stuff and getting the suit for the first time. It really lets you see what made this Batman who he is, why he operates the way he does, and I love the movie for it. You get incredible villains. Liam Neeson is just so good in this movie, kind of being behind the scenes, just pulling the strings throughout the whole thing. And then you got Cillian Murphy as like the side villain, but he absolutely steals the show with his performance in this. I love the visuals of this version of Scarecrow, just an incredible character overall. My number 1 is easily Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, an absolute 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, whatever rating scale you use, it's maxed out on it. I don't need to really yap about the details of why I think this movie is incredible. I've done it a million times, and I think everybody out there can agree, but I do want to say I actually think Across the Spider-Verse somehow made this even better as an origin story, now knowing what we do about Miles and what was or wasn't supposed to happen. Absolute peak. Make sure to like the video if you're still watching. Thank you so much.